Today we're in Goshen, Indiana, the home of Brinkley RV. We have a rare opportunity to take a tour of the Model G production plant. So let's go inside and see how Brinkley toy haulers are made. Eric is the product director here at Brinkley RV. And Eric, thank you so much.
How's it going?
And I think Eric is going to have a surprise for us at the end of this tour.
Maybe.
So take it away, Eric.
All right. So a little bit about us here at Brinkley. We've been around since about 2022. We have 5 equal share owners in Brinkley. That's what I was afraid of. We have 5 equal share owners here at Brinkley. Amongst those 5 owners, they have over 100 years of experience in the RV industry as some of the most successful and prominent companies and brands to ever do it. You have Bill and Ron Fennick. They are in kind of an advisory role here at Brinkley, but they bring a ton of experience with them. Bill and Ron, they were co-founders in Keystone way back in the day. They also had a heavy hand in the development of the Cougar and Montana lines. They went on to then sell that out to Thor. Ron stayed on there as president for quite some time afterwards in the motorized side of things. And then him and Bill went on to be co-founders of Grand Design. And it was through their time there at Grand Design that they ended up pulling in Micah. Micah was a general manager over Imagine, Transcend, and Reflection. And then they also pulled in Nate Goldenberg, who was over the Solitude and Momentum lines. So they have kind of settled into their own respective, I guess, strong suits here. Micah, he is over the Z and Z Air product line, and then Nate, he is going to be over the G product line as well as customer care. Lastly, but definitely not least, we have Ryan Twaits. Ryan Twaits is kind of our jack of all trades here. He's done a little bit of everything in the industry, from going dealer to dealer, selling for the OEMs. He's also done a lot of product development, and as of more recent, he's started up an RV supply company and also an RV transportation company, which is who we use today to take units from here to the factory and disperse them all throughout the country to our different dealer partners. So that's kind of our leadership team in a nutshell there. Really, through kind of the COVID era, they were all kind of sitting on the bench, talking about what maybe their next move is going to be. And it was through that time, maintaining a lot of the dealer relationships that they had, fostered kind of along the way in their careers here. They were able to really kind of get a first-hand look at, the fall of the industry in terms of, the overall quality and customer experience during that time there. So that is what really spurred them on to create what we are standing in here today at Brinkley. It was through a lot of that, kind of experience that they had fostered up until that point that they were able to really take a look and see, what do we want to become as a company? And through that, they really wanted to develop innovative products, that was brand new to the market, brings a lot of different functionality to it, well thought out design. Then they also wanted to take kind of your top tier warranty items and develop those out on the factory floor here. You'll see that in our plumbing, you'll see that in our wiring harness, in our seals, and our cabinetry construction. Lastly, but definitely not least, most importantly, we wanted to focus on the overall customer experience and having that be industry leading, something that is never really quite before seen in the industry, at least to the level in which we're taking it. So that was really kind of their North Star, their guiding light there as they continue to lay out what Brinkley is becoming here today. Looking at the overall campus, we have about 250 acres kind of on the north side of County Road 38 there. Those 250 acres, we have plans for 8 manufacturing facilities with our own dedicated lamination facility, which is what we have today. But that lamination facility is going to feed the other manufacturing facilities with sidewalls, small parts, welded aluminum framing for main floors. The list kind of goes on there, but all of that comes from that lamination facility at the back end of the property here. Then you will see on the other side of the road, the south side of County Road 38, we have about another 160 acres or so and eventually those will be like our corporate offices, customer care teams, you know, all the supporting roles are going to be over there. So this will be kind of our manufacturing arm on this side of the road, with all the supporting roles on the south side. Looking at each facility here, they're about as copy-paste as we can get them. We had Purdue University come in and help lay out how manufacturing works in these facilities. So developed for efficiency. They are all about 175,000 square feet. A little bit overbuilt for what we need immediately for production purposes. However, that additional square footage lets us store a lot of weather sensitive material inside, raised mezzanines. Of course, it's climate controlled here. It's, you know, set at 70 degrees. So we are one of the very few, actually I think we're the only ones that have air conditioning as well as heating in all of our facilities. We get a lot of our kind of top tier employees based on that fact alone there. You know, if they're tired of sweating it out through the summers, they come work for Brinkley. As far as square footage wise and kind of the overall layout, I mentioned that everything is kind of copy and paste. That does give us a lot of flexibility here at Brinkley to run, you know, different segments at different facilities. So if they kind of run, you know, upwards of where we want to be at in one facility, we can actually, you know, dedicate another facility for those brands there as well. So that's a little bit about us here at Brinkley and a little bit about our campus. With that said, let's dive into the front of the line here.
Let's do it.
A lot of these people have been in the industry for quite some time, so they do have some like kind of specialized tooling that they might feel more comfortable with, but we do give them a lot of their own tooling here. This is actually some of the parts that we get in from lamination. These are all aluminum framing for your main floor in Z's or G's, I guess, in this facility. But everything is going to be aluminum wise, cut, bent, welded, in-house in our lamination facility. So over here at Station 1, this is where each chassis gets put actually technically on the production line. This chassis here is going to be a 3950 chassis. We do develop our chassis in a partnership with Lippert. We do a lot of on-track testing with those guys over there, guys and gals. Through that on-track testing, you know, we'll overload each coach. We'll put it through a series of torture tests. It stays there for about 6 to 8 weeks. That's called a Bosch test. They will simulate a little over 100,000 miles on each of those tests. And it's through that testing that we develop kind of the Brinkley spec for our frames. A couple of notable items here for G is you're going to have an 8-inch tall side rail here. You're going to have extra gusseting up here under that top deck area to create a more rigid riser space. Also, a 12-inch conventional straight I-beam with our own under chassis storage there. We have a thicker main rail up here, and you will also notice some of our basically lag points there. So your sidewall is going to sit here, and you're going to get vertical lags, horizontal lags, okay, as well as some Sikaflex in between. Also, at station number 1 here, they're going to be working on laying out some of your preliminary wiring. So this is the industry's first wire harness. We get these wire harnesses in from our vendor, already pre-cut, labeled, loomed, color coordinated, basically plug and play for all of our plant employees. And then up top here, these are going to be your holding tanks. So these are all blacks and grays with your freshwater holding tanks being over here. Now, if you look down the side of them, you can see that black pad in there. That's going to be a 12-volt thermostatically controlled tank heating pad. That is going to be found on all of your holding tanks. It's a little easier to see them on the freshwater there. Over in station number 2 here, you'll actually notice that the chassis looks a little different. So they take this machine at the end and this crane up here, they work to pick that whole chassis up and actually roll it over on its belly. That allows all of our plant employees to really be working kind of from the top down instead of laying on their back working from the bottom up. Gives them a little bit more, you know, kind of easy going workplace there. Also on the outside here, you're going to notice some of our custom speaker boxes. That's where all of your speakers are going to be instead of in the sidewall, creating, you know, other potential leak points. This also gives you a really good look at some of our plumbing connections there. So you will have PEX piping going to brass connectors with a pneumatically pressed outrigger clamp. A lot of manufacturers, they still have someone hand crimping those clamps, which is probably okay at about 6 in the morning. But once it gets closer to that noon hour and they've done this a couple thousand times, it could be questionable, right? So just for consistency purposes in our build practices there, we do have a machine clamping those. Also with our holding tanks here, you can see there is supports on the tops and bottoms for extra stability going down the road. If you are carrying, you know, tanks full of water, you do have that support. If you look right down over here, you'll actually see your electronic dump valves as well.
So the tanks are kind of spread out throughout.
A little bit. They do vary floor plan to floor plan. Now moving over here, this is going to be all of your running gear. So you will have Dexter Easy Flex. That's going to be your equalizer. We also use heavy duty 1/2-inch shackles there. Greasable wet bolts. And then either a 7K axle or an 8K axle. The 7K axle is going to get an ABS with Dexter Tow Assist. The 8K axle option is going to give you disc brakes, which you have a pretty good viewpoint there. Both options are going to give you sumo springs, which will dramatically reduce the G-forces by about approximately 68%. In the back of all Gs, except for the 3250, the 3250 is a little different, but in all other G floor plans, you're going to have two 30-gallon tanks back here. One is going to be dedicated for that 5500 watt RVMP generator. The other one is going to be more of an auxiliary tank for any kind of toys. You could also use that to fill up the generator tank, or you could even convert this tank over to diesel if you wanted to. Up here, these are going to be your wheel and tire package for the Model G and Z lines. This is going to be a 17.5-inch custom aluminum Brinkley wheel mated to the Cooper H-rated 16-ply tire. Now over here, you'll also see we do have a heat ducting system that goes into the underbelly here. That's going to run off your furnace. So your furnace is going to push hot air into this underbelly cavity through this material here, which is called Thermoflex. We use that to replace that kind of cheapo looking and feeling dryer vent material. It's very rugged in comparison. Something to note while we're here, all of your leveling and main slides are going to run off of hydraulics. Your main slide here is going to be a through frame rack and pinion, and then your leveling is going to be all hydraulic there. Then over in this station right here, station number 4, this is where they're going to swap out kind of the general pin box that they use to transport frames over for the Gen Y system. Which you either have the standard kingpin here, or we do have a gooseneck solution as well from Gen Y. There's a pretty good shot at your running gear down there. Now up here on this table, this is where they are going to assemble your floor. So they're going to start off by taking some Darko material. That's the material you see here, a good moisture barrier. They will then lay thermofoil over top of that. They'll then grab your main aluminum flooring structure over there, and they'll drop it down on top of this table. They then take pre-cut batten insulation, and then they will stuff that batten insulation in between all the studs here. They'll run some of your preliminary wiring, your heat duct, even in certain models, some plumbing. Once they get that all done there, they will take your 5/8 inch big board marine grade OSB decking. They'll lay that down over top, and then they kind of wrap everything up like a Christmas present. Lastly, they will put your linoleum over top of that. This material is called Congolium. It has a limestone paper backing to give it a little squish in there. Helps when you're walking around, and also helps kind of, absorb some, blunt hits there during use. Lastly, but definitely not least, once they lay out your linoleum, they're actually going to take a Turnabond, and anywhere that there's a potential for water intrusion, they're going to seal it up with a Turnabond. Then over here, this is where they're actually going to manufacture your garage floor in the Model G. So very similar material type to your main floor over there, but this material is going to be 1 inch thick. It will also get bolted straight to your chassis, and it will have CNC routed areas for all of your L-track universal tie-down system. That will also get bolted right into your chassis here.
What's the capacity on that?
2,000 pounds per D-ring. Yep. So once they go and they button down all the flooring here, they will push it onto what we call kind of the main vein of production here. Over here, you really see the emergence of 2 different production groups. You have your offline teams. These teams are going to be pre-assembling components for the online groups, and then you have your online teams that are taking those pre-assembled components and putting them where they need to go online. We do manufacture all of our cabinetry here in-house. Everything is made back there and kind of in these off-line teams. That's going to be our wood shop back there. As you can see, all of that wood that would typically be sitting outside is inside in a nice climate-controlled building. Trying to keep, everything as consistent as we can. That allows us to keep a very tight tolerance in production. So you can kind of see all these pre-assembled, cabinets, islands, etc. Those teams are working about a day in advance of the online production teams. So they kind of leapfrog over each other. So we make all of our cabinetry in-house except for 3 things. We don't make the dovetail drawer boxes, we don't make the drawer fronts, or the cabinet doors. Those are all items that we get from a local vendor here. But outside of that, all cabinetry is made in-house. Yeah, we even try to institute some cranes, some elevators of sorts there to allow for a little bit easier work life here at Brinkley for our employees. So they can load a lot of pre-assembled components up there on top, and instead of coming from the bottom and heave-hoeing it up onto the frame there, they actually drop that down to where it's at working level, then they can just walk parts across. So something that I always like to point out, right here, this is going to be an 1.5 inch wire chase. So that wire chase is going to go from the roof all the way down into your pass-through here. So if you wanted to run, you know, other roof mounted accessories, instead of trying to snake that wire in and out through a window, you can just use that wire chase.
The solar system and all.
Yep, for sure. A couple other things to note while we're here. All of your water connections, they're actually going to have their own independent shutoff valves. So around sinks, you know, toilet, any kind of water feature, every G is going to be prepped for a dishwasher. And by prep we mean, you know, the water lines are there, you're going to have an outlet nearby as well. Yeah, so right here is actually where each chassis is going to get its sidewalls. So you can kind of see this chassis, and then the next station over, we've got walls. So they use these cranes over here up top to grab those sidewalls, and then working as like a four-man team, they'll, you know, work to fasten them on. So if you're looking down here, you'll notice this outer material here, that's FRP. That's a Phylon rolled product. That's basically what's gonna give you the durability on the outside and also your color. Right below that is gonna be 4.7 millimeter Azdale. And right below that, you're gonna have your aluminum structure with block foam insulation. Now, what is unique about us in the way that we weld is that most manufacturers are either gonna full seam weld one side or the other, or tack weld both sides. We do a dual seam weld on both sides. You can also,
piece of wood in
yep,
the support I can see.
Yep, so that wood is going to be in there for screw retention. So when you're coming up through with a lag, it's got something to bite into. What you don't want is a lag going up into just aluminum, because over time, as that continues to move around in there, it's actually going to wallow out that hole, making it a little bigger, and then those lags will want to work their way out. You can even see some of the grinding that we've done here. In addition to the chemical bonding that takes place in our lamination process, there is also a mechanical bond there too. And then lastly, on the inside of that wall kind of sandwich there, you're going to have another layer of 2.7 millimeter Azdale along with your wall vinyl. That all gets pinch rolled at about 80 pounds per square inch before allowing it to set up, and then they will go in and route everything out. All of our windows, entry doors, everything kind of on the outside here is going to be framed out. So you will actually have aluminum tubing going around, you know, those windows and outer features. That really helps with the way that our windows seal. Also helps with a little bit of insulation as well. Looking at this right here, this is going to be the outside of your slide box. They're going to take this wall, mount it onto the chassis, and then they will route that out the rest of the way. They will take that kind of fascia there, they'll put it over into the slide department over here. They will then VIN code that, so they know exactly what wall it came out of, and it will kind of travel in parallel with your coach as it moves through slides, finally meeting that same coach that it came out of on the other side. Yeah, we actually had the opportunity to tour Precision Painting, the sales team did, and that was very eye-opening as far as how many man hours really do go into a full body painted Model G. Approximately 12 man hours in just stenciling. Yeah. So up here, this is where they manufacture the roofs. So we've actually, dedicated a lot of manufacturing space to be able to manufacture the roof all in one piece. That's what you're seeing here. Some of our leadership team, they came from other experiences to where they couldn't quite do that in manufacturing. And what they found out was when they go to the front, they put that front piece down, that fits well. The second piece might fit pretty well. By the time they get to the end, they're always kind of trimming, shimming, making other adjustments to get to fit just right. Having the production space up here to be able to do that all in one piece, that was huge for them. You'll see that it gets kind of manufactured up here upside down. That way when they are, routing out lights, your AC boxes, skylights, etc., all that offall is falling down into that kind of trough area there. Trying to shake out as much from the roof as we possibly can. You're gonna have 16 on center trusses. They will also double up trusses around, kind of critical areas there, like your air conditioning units. I think in some of the G's, you might have some stereo equipment up there that requires another truss. And then as far as ducting goes, you will see that there is no real racetrack ducting here. They found out through some preliminary testing that ducting, we lose so much cooling with every 90-degree corner in a racetrack ducting system. So they wanted something that was a little bit more direct with where they were putting cold air. So this is kind of what we came up with here. This is what we call B ducting. So do you have any idea why we manufacture the roof with wood and not aluminum?
I was going to ask you that question.
Okay, good.
There are many people wondering.
Yep. So a wood roof serves as our flex point. If you make something too rigid, it will actually beat itself up going down the road, creating problems. You do have to have an area with a little bit of give. For us, that is our roof. So it looks like this one's just about ready to go. In the morning they're gonna take that crane, come back, grab it, and take it out over the top of the coach. A couple of things to note here. If you walk up into a Brinkley, you will look up into that kind of roofline area, and what do you see? You don't see any kind of gimp trim or crown molding. You're gonna see just a nice thin bead of caulking. There's two reasons for that. Really, it's because the roof is manufactured one piece. Secondly, the tight tolerances that we have in our sidewalls there. So we have about 1/8 of an inch of tolerance. If you're looking at it like a window, we have 1/8 of an inch either way there for tolerance. From there, once it gets fastened down into the sidewalls, they'll push it along here. These scaffoldings, they will open up and go down as each unit continues to travel down the line. So what they're doing there, that's some of your 110 wiring. They're going to be using that wiring to wire up, air conditioning units, etc. on the top of the G. And then here's some remnants of some of the 12-volt bundles. You can also see some of the connections that we use there. That is a Deutsch connection, so that is more of an automotive style connector. When you plug those two ends together, it creates a watertight connection. You won't see any wire nuts here. So once they finish wrapping up the wiring up top there, they will use pre-cut batten insulation to stuff in between those trusses. Once they stuff all that insulation in the trusses, they will come and they'll grab this crane here. What's cool about this operation is that this is your roof decking, okay? Most of the time when people are putting roof decking on, they're going to then route out, roof vent holes, air conditioner holes, all that kind of stuff while the decking is on the unit. We actually have a jig behind us here to where all of that decking is actually routed out. So, what does that mean?
Less dust.
Less dust, less offall forever in the roof of your RV. So once they stuff everything, they will come and grab this machine right here that is going to have thermofoil that will then get draped across the top of the unit and over the front cap there, so your front cap is going to be insulated just like the rest of the RV. Then on its return trip, they'll take this roof decking and piece by piece lay it out as that machine returns home.
So it's all sorted here in the way it should be installed.
Yep,
wow.
Exactly. So once they fasten all your roof decking down, they're going to use sanders, which you can kind of see some of the remnants of that job over here. They're going to take sanders, and wherever there's a truss line, okay, where there's screws, they're going to sand over it as kind of a first step in inspection. So what they want to make sure that they are catching is anything that is potentially sticking up there that could become an issue. So they're not only sanding, but they're also inspecting during this process. So from that station over there to this station right here, not much happens on the roof. However, when it gets here to this station, this is where they will continue on with the roof, building it out and sealing it up. So they will start here with a Turnabond going all the way around the perimeter of the coach. They will use that Turnabond to seal the roof line. So once they Turnabond everything, they're gonna come and grab some commercial butyl strips. They're gonna run that commercial butyl along the sides there, and then they will come back, grab adhesive, spray that adhesive over the roof. They will then roll it out. They're looking for just the right consistency in that process. Then once they go up to the top there, the kind of head of the unit, they'll grab that TPO membrane and they will stretch that out over the entirety of the coach as well. Then working as a two-man team, they'll actually stretch that material side to side there, and they will tack it to that commercial butyl in a couple of places on kind of their return trip here. Then they're gonna grab squeegees and kind of wet the top of the roof with soapy water, and then they will squeegee out any kind of air bubbles, excess adhesive, making sure that that is laying very nicely. Once they get that laying down the way that they want it, they'll go back up to the top and they will then come back and kind of knead that TPO membrane into that commercial butyl. Lastly, they'll call for this machine back here behind us. This machine is going to have your Mylar backed trim pieces in it. Mylar is going to be property-wise very similar to butyl. However, Mylar will not stick to itself, so we can't use it around corners or anything like that. But it works great for long runs of trim. So when they put this trim down and they run a screw through it, that screw is going through not only Mylar, but also commercial butyl, a Turnabond, and then into the side of the coach. So you get a nice looking roof like you see here. And then around all of your roof vents, you're going to have commercial butyl in there as well. And then we will layer Alphathane 5121 leveling sealant around those roof mounted accessories. It is 100% solids instead of the solvent based material that some other manufacturers use. That material that we use will not break down over time. So after that, they'll go working to mount all of your roof mounted accessories on top: solar panels, air conditioning units, max air fans. So there's going to be one black mushroom cap on top of the roof, and that is going to be your wire chase. You can see it from up there. Yep. Everything else is going to be white. Really when they were trying to lay out the overall vision for Brinkley and how they wanted to separate ourselves from kind of the rest of the industry, a couple of things came to mind. They really wanted to focus on residential interiors. That's how we came up with our craft sense construction on the cabinetry. That way you don't see any kind of pin nails, staple holes, no putty to patch things up. That putty never really quite matches up the way that it should either. So that was a big focus of ours in development there. Also, one of those items were the Brinkley Automotive Exterior Seal Package. So that is going to be sealed up very similar to like your tow vehicle. You're not going to have any kind of clear silicone to manage, make sure that that's in place. Of course, if that clear silicone pulls apart, that could create some leak points there. So we mentioned that your main slides are going to be through frame rack and pinion. Your bed slide here is going to be a slim rack system. So it's going to look very similar to like a Schwintek. However, this rail here doesn't actually have any kind of weight that it's carrying. Very different from Schwintek. The slide box in the Schwintek system is going to get carried. All that weight is going to be on the track system itself. This slide box, all the weight of it is actually carried on a series of rollers inside here and on the interior of the coach. So if that is all the way in, you can use that slide just like normal. You can sleep in it. If you decide to pull over for, you know, rest for a couple of hours during the night kind of thing, you can definitely use that just like normal without running it out. So right behind us here, this is our kind of the end of the slide department. It's on that crane there, which that crane will, you know, first thing in the morning, pick up that slide, and then they will work to fasten it into the chassis there. So as we come into this section up here, you can see that the lighting changes a little bit. There's more lights, they're closer to the ground. This is really the start of first final. So this is where they're taking a pretty in-depth look around the exterior of the coach while they continue to, you know, kind of finish up on the interior there. So through this area here, you know, your windows are going to be put in, your patio door is going to be put on, your slide boxes, all of those kind of major interior components are going to go in during this stage. So right here is where they're going to work to put your windows in. So once they get those windows in, each unit then goes through what we call a bubble seal test. Basically, you're going to run out the slides, you're going to then spray soapy water around all your windows, your seals, etc. And then they are going to take a machine that creates an atmosphere inside the unit, creates pressure. Through that pressurizing of the inside of the unit, they will then look around those seals for any kind of bubbling, right? So if they see bubbles in the wrong place, they're going to then pop that window out, reseal it, or pop that seam or slide or seal, and they will then work to make adjustments here on the line. The two different G's here, one is our standard model G package, exterior package. The other one over here, this is going to be one that gets the premium exterior package. Way early on, as we kind of made the turn up there, going from flooring to kind of the main vein of production, they will take a hose and they will then fill up all your holding tanks. So through this entire time in production here, they're going to be looking at that unit for any kind of slow leaks. So once it gets into this station right here, right behind you, they're going to take all those tanks and they're going to drain them to then be pressurized again in PDI. Here's a gooseneck option. Yeah, so you can really see kind of the lighting change here. This is the last station of first final before it goes up into final finish. Now through final finish, this is where they're going to take all your furniture, add that to the coach, your trim pieces, you know, a lot of the finer details. You're going to get your chairs put in, you're going to get power cords, you're going to get waste paper baskets. Again, all those finer details go into the coach at this time. And you can also see that the lighting changes once again. You know, more lights are on an angle there. So they're really looking at the exterior of the coach, trying to catch any kind of imperfections. And then they will really clean everything as well. We've got to be getting close.
All right.
Are you ready to meet your G?
Let's do it.
Okay, this is it. 2020.
So that is our unit.
That is it.
And how long did it take for it to get here?
So we have approximately 40 stations in production right now, and we are at about 7 a day. So approximately 6 days of online time, a little bit over that.
And then it will go to paint, and how long is that process going to take?
Oh, paint, overall it's probably 3 to 4 weeks there, taking into account transportation, etc. Yeah, so you'll also notice that they don't have any marker lights, your awning isn't on. Those are all things that they can't paint around or over. So it'll go to paint just like that, and then when it comes back, then we put it back through a secondary PDI process in which they will go back through and they'll touch up any kind of imperfections in the paint. If there is any, then we will add all of your exterior features as well. But it won't leave for paint until it goes on the shaker plate. So that's what this G is on right now. So that is a pneumatic system that will pressurize up, lifting the whole coach off the ground, and it'll sit there and shake. It'll be on that shaker plate for about 5 minutes. It's supposed to simulate about 500 miles. Really cool to see. This is again where they dive into a lot of those finer details. If a slide box isn't quite matched up right with a magnet, you might see that slide box pop open. They'll go in there and make adjustments. But wild to see because the windows would cavitate, the chandeliers in there kind of bouncing up and down. They're really shaking this thing out before it leaves us. Now from there, it will then get pulled up here onto the scales. So each G is going to get weighed right here. It's going to get a UBW. It's going to get a couple of axle weight ratings, and then it will also get your hitch weight as well. Lastly, but definitely not least, gets this little infant pictures with the 360-degree cameras up top. So we have some exterior cameras there, and then we have some interior cameras as well called Black Widow cameras. They will take a full 360 of each room in the G. Then from there, it'll actually slide into this line here, and this is going to be our PDI line, to where we have the industry's best PDI process. We put each coach through over 350 points of inspection. Nothing leaves here without being built to spec.
So the painted units will be measured after they get paint on it?
Yes.
How much does it add usually paint to it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I want to say, like paint and different fiberglass all in, it's probably a couple $100. Okay. Yeah.
Not that much.
No, not.
What about the dual pane windows? I heard a lot of arguments about that. Not the usability of them, but actual weight that they add to the same G4000.
Yeah, it's about another 150, 200 pounds or so. That's kind of the general number that we use because it will vary floor plan to floor plan with the amount of windows that it has or does not have. But yeah, here you can notice, the domed lettering there with Brinkley, the painted end walls and the slides. If you went around to the front, you could see the painted gooseneck. So we did the diamond shield coating up there. It's kind of like a rhino liner. Makes that whole area a little bit more durable. Stone chip resistant, call it.
We got the 8K axles on ours, and so there is no that stability control. Is that something just not available at all?
So yeah, right.
Not needed probably?
Yep. Disc brakes are going to be a better performing braking system, but like you said, you do miss out on that ABS, that anti-sway. That is because the ABS and anti-sway, the 7K, drum brake axles, those are going to be electronically operated. So you can send a signal to one or multiples. You can kind of dynamically change how you are braking each wheel there. With a hydraulic system, it is one input, gets you one reaction for everything. But yeah, you can see just the level of clarity in the paint and the full cut and buff finish that we put to every Model G premium exterior package. Yeah, so you can kind of see that material there.
Chip resistant. So there it is, Brinkley G model production plant. Thank you so much, Eric, for your time and taking us through this and showing us how Brinkley's are made.
Happy to walk you through. Thank you.